9-1 is all about solving quadratic equations. So what is a solution to a quadratic equation? Well, a solution is called two different things. The first one, it's just the x-intercepts of the graph, where the graph crosses the x-axis. And the second thing it's called are zeros of the function. And that just means when the y value is equal to 0, what is the x? Okay, so two different ways of thinking about it. One is x-intercepts and one is zeros, and you'll have to put those two in your homework. So it'll ask you for x-intercepts and the zeros of the function. I'll show you what that means on my graph in just a minute. But the next thing I want you to know is that we have three different types of solutions. So we can have one solution, two solutions, or none, no solution. Okay, so if we look at this on a graph, okay, I have three different quadratics to look at. This one right here, this one, if you'll notice, doesn't cross the x-axis, right? So there is no solution, because that's what we're looking for. We're looking at where it crosses this x-axis. So if it doesn't cross it and it's either below it or even if it's above it, let's say it's up here, no solution. All right, so when you're looking at your homework, you see a graph, it doesn't cross the x-axis anywhere, no solution. This one, as I've already written, has one solution because it's resting on this x-axis. So this solution is 0, 0, the origin, and it's only one solution because it doesn't cross it in two different places. Now, most of the time, we'll have two different solutions, like this graph, because this parabola actually crosses the x-axis here, and it crosses here. So on your homework, when you're asked for the x-intercepts, it should be in coordinate pairs like this. 4, 0, 8, 0 is the coordinate pair for this spot and this spot. Those are the solutions. If it says what are the zeros of this function, you could just write it like this, 4, 8, because it crosses the x-axis at +4 and +8. Also remember when you're doing your homework, because you can save yourself some time, that the a value, as we learned in chapter 8, the a value of any function determines whether or not it opens upward or downward. So remember that if the a value is positive, it opens up. So this a value would be positive. This a value is positive. This a value is negative because it opens downward. And this a value is negative because it opens downward also. So a lot of the times you'll have multiple choice answers. 2 of them open upward, 2 of them open downward. So keep in mind, look at that a value. If it's negative, it goes down. If it's positive, it goes up. All right, so let me do a couple more examples with you, because you're gonna do one of two things. If you have a quadratic equation that you're given and you're asked to find the solution with graphing, you can use the Desmos calculator. I posted a link on your Google Classroom, and you can use it as your graphing calculator. Just type in the exact equation, and then it gives you the graph, and all you're doing is looking at where it crosses the x-axis. Does it sit on it, or is it on the top? Does it only hit it once? Is there two places where it hits the x-axis, or does it not cross at all, in which case there'd be no solution? But there's another way that we can do with solving equations if there's no b value. So remember, we have ax squared plus bx plus c is our standard form for a quadratic. But sometimes this b value isn't there. For instance, we can have something like this, x squared minus 4. This is still a quadratic equation because this degree of 2, but there's no b value. There's no x term right here. So what's really cool about these, because we know that the zeros are the function, mean that the y value has to be 0, we remember that f of x is usually how we represent the function, right? And I've always told you guys that f of x is also y. So if we put 0 here, because we know that y has to equal 0, and then we can find whatever the solution is, now we can solve this like we'd solve an equation with adding 4 to both sides. So we get 4 on this side, x squared on this side. Now, when we have a squared, anytime something is squared, the opposite of that, or the undoing of that, is taking the square root. Okay, so if we square root both sides of this, that's what gives us the x by itself, and the square root of 4 is -2 and +2. Remember that anytime we have square roots, we're going to have two different solutions, because -2 times -2 is +4, and +2 times +2 is also +4. So that means that both -2 and 2 are the solutions for this original equation.